you take the one that's available to you at this point, especially since those two have very similar efficacies. So the Pfizer vaccine is the one I received. I got it in my left shoulder since I'm right-handed. I got 0.3 milliliters. That's the dose that you get. And I did not feel a thing. I didn't even feel a pinch. Just got dose 1 of the COVID-19 vaccine. Yes, I'm the best. Because I'm a baby. Mommy's not a baby. Look at that. Did you do the thing? I promise I didn't feel anything. All right.
Welcome back to the program. So let us never lose sight of what's going on with the coronavirus and its vaccine. The fact that the distribution of it has been slow at best. Operation Warp Speed has not lived up to the task of getting the vaccine out there to all Americans. And one of the questions that looms large is how will Black Americans perceive this vaccine or the vaccines that are coming forward? Joining me now to weigh in on this issue and a myriad of other issues confronting us because of COVID-19 is Dr. Frita. Dr. Frita is a triple board certified physician. She also has a YouTube channel. And Doc, thanks for being a part of us today with this all important information that you're providing for us for trusting these vaccinations, because right now, Black Americans do not have any trust in the process. Tell me why.
It's my pleasure to be here. There are so many reasons. We often cite historical reasons like the Tuskegee experiment and just the historical maltreatment of Blacks in America from the medical community, but it's not all in the past. There's so much that's going on currently. Even now, Black women have a higher chance of dying during childbirth. We have higher infant mortality among the Black community. Blacks are perceived as having less pain. Their pain is not taken as seriously. There's so many things currently that cause medical mistrust, not just in the past. And when you hear people so excited about the vaccine distribution and they say, oh, it's going to be in pharmacies and it's going to be in supermarkets. Well, so many Black communities don't have supermarkets nearby. They don't have pharmacies. And you may have some of the experts saying, oh, well, you have a pharmacy and it's just a few miles away. Well, if you don't have a car, then a few miles can be very, very far for you. And so I think that a lot of times as we talk about the vaccines and distribution, we don't have a realistic understanding of what the Black community is going through. But what we do know is that COVID-19 is disproportionately affecting the Black community. It is killing us more than any other community, and we are more likely to be hospitalized. And so the vaccine looks like the way to help us to get rid of the pandemic. And so we've got to figure out a way in order for the Black community to accept it and to understand that thus far, it seems to be quite safe.
Yeah, and we should point out the fact that you're someone who's very familiar with the vaccination process. You were one of the first doctors in the country to receive it. Tell me what that experience was like and how, what dose you received and from what company.
I felt so blessed. And let me tell you, ever since this pandemic started, well, actually even before it started, back in December 2019, I have been studying it, I have been watching it. And when they started coming up with the vaccines, it's something I've been paying attention to very carefully. And so I'm proud to say that I really do believe that the research has been thorough and that the vaccine thus far is safe. And so as a healthcare provider, I was considered frontline and I got to have my vaccine at the end of December. I did the Pfizer vaccine. That's what was available to me. And it's a situation where if you're given a choice between Pfizer, Moderna, you take the one that's available to you at this point, especially since those two have very similar efficacies. So the Pfizer vaccine is the one I received. I got it in my left shoulder since I'm right-handed. I got 0.3 milliliters. That's the dose that you get. And I did not feel a thing. I didn't even feel a pinch when I actually got the vaccination, so much so where I turned and I asked the nurse, I said, did you do the vaccine? And the next day, within the first 24 hours, I got a little soreness in my shoulder, similar to when I get the flu vaccine. And since then, I have had absolutely no symptoms. Now, some people will complain of fever, headaches, chills, and I happen to not get any of those symptoms. And so far, I'm doing really, really well. And I'm excited because I should be getting my dose 2 very, very soon.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you when you would be getting your dose too, but that's the thing with this particular Pfizer vaccine. It's required to be given in 2 doses. Why is that? And does it prove to be more effective?
Absolutely. So when you get that first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, it's like a primer of your immune system. So you're introducing your body to that spike protein that people keep talking about on the surface of the coronavirus. Your body then starts to rev up the immune system where you recognize it and you make antibodies against it. But it's kind of a slow start for that first dose. By the time you get the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine, which is 3 weeks after the first dose, well, now your body has seen this spike protein, it's seen the vaccine before, and so the immune system is ready to rev up even faster and to a greater degree. And so you get many, many, many more antibodies a second time. And I will say, I've spoken with people who've gotten their second doses. My sister-in-law, Mandy McCrae, is actually a nurse. She got her second dose. And just like me, she did fine with the first dose. But for the second dose, she said she had some fever and some fast heart rates, and she could really feel her body's immune system. So that's something that I am expecting. But if I do get symptoms with the second dose, I'll know that my body is doing what it's supposed to do, is revving up my immunity so that I can be immune to COVID-19.
Dr. Frita, we thank you for sharing that personal insight of actually experiencing the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine. A lot of people need to hear that in the Black community and the Brown community. I'd like you to stay with me. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you about the problems that are still besetting us because of this pandemic and the fact that we have seen record numbers of people dying in a single day. I'm talking to Dr. Frita. We'll be back in just a moment.
COVID-19 numbers continue to skyrocket.
With all the challenges, questions, and concerns.
It could be months before the vaccine is available to the general public.
In the crisis of the pandemic, we are the voice for the Black community.
What role did African-American scientists like Dr. Kizzy Corbett play in the development of this vaccine?
Bringing you the coverage to keep you informed on the latest COVID stories.
The CDC is recommending that COVID vaccines go to frontline workers and people over the age of 74 first.
Only on BNC.
Dr. Frita, I wanted to talk to you. In the first segment, we were talking about your concerns about Black Americans and this COVID-19 and how we are now put into a position wherein we need this vaccine in order to survive and overcome this coronavirus. But let's be clear, there's a surge within the surge. We're seeing untold numbers, record numbers dying on a daily basis. What concerns do you have about 3,500 people, 4,500 people dying in single days because of this coronavirus?
The major concern I have is the pandemic fatigue. At this point, we've been dealing with this pandemic for just about a year, and the scientists have been warning and screaming for people to stay home or to wear masks or to socially distance. But despite all of the efforts made by the scientists and just people in the community with good common sense, we've had some battles, some statements and some examples from higher places in government administration, for example. And so it's been a battle. We've been battling the virus, but also battling misinformation. I can't tell you how many times I've warned people, starting at Thanksgiving and certainly the Christmas holiday as well, not to travel if you don't have to, not to go and see your 90-year-old grandma and expose her. But we see that people have done it. They have pandemic fatigue and they're out there and they're just not listening. My concern is that there used to, I feel, be such a great respect for science, but we've lost some of that just recently. And that makes it very difficult to give people the good information they need and for them to accept it. And so I fear, especially now with some of these variants coming about, the UK variant, the South African variant, that things really could get out of control if we're not using the basic measures we have to protect ourselves from the coronavirus.
Let's talk about those variants just briefly. We have the UK variant, which you mentioned, and the South African variant. Both of them are highly infectious, and they hit our bodies at a faster rate. Does it mean, however, that the vaccinations that are now being dispersed throughout this country, would these new variants resist any vaccination? Do you know that yet?
We don't know for sure yet, but we believe that these variants are highly transmissible, meaning that it's much easier to catch these variants than it is to catch the previously known variant of the coronavirus. So even if it may not be more infectious in that it may not make you more sick, but it's easier to catch. And so what does that mean? If you're dealing with someone who has a compromised immune system or an elderly person, if they can catch it if they can catch it easily, then that person can be at risk. We believe right now, based on the mutations that we've seen, that the current vaccines available will still protect us from these variants. But here's the worry. If we keep spreading this virus, if we keep spreading the variants, and if people do not get vaccinated, the viruses can be a bit smart and they can start to mutate, and the ones that are resistant to the vaccine may prevail. And so what we want to do is try to get everyone vaccinated and try to get people to stop passing the viruses to each other before the viruses even have a chance to overtake us in that manner.
Doc, what you just said is very startling and revealing, and I hope people are really paying attention to you. In the interim, we are waiting for the vaccine and the vaccines to be distributed throughout this country. Operation Warp Speed has actually been operating very slowly. And then you have the fault finding and the politicizing of all of this. People do need to wear a mask and socially distance themselves, but the new administration that's coming in, they will have the task of distributing this vaccination to people. And Joe Biden, the incoming president, has stated he wants to reach 100 million people in 100 days. Is that possible?
I'm an eternal optimist. So yes, the answer is I do believe that it's possible, but not at the rate right now that we're going. He's going to have to get in there and make some very serious changes. And of course, the trouble has been that from what it seems, his transition has not been what it should. And so he hasn't had all of the access that he should have had. I do believe, I have a lot of faith in this new administration, and I do believe it's possible, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it will be an uphill climb.
Appreciate you, Dr. Frita.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
We'll be back with more after this.
Closed captioning brought to you by Nutrisystem. Lose weight and get healthy with meals delivered to your door.